Yo, what up YouTube? It's Bryce, and I'm just going to be doing a video today entitled Tips and Tricks Frog Monarchs. Basically, I'm going to go through all the plays that you're really going to need in order to know how to play the deck. So, yeah, I guess let's get down to it. Okay, we're going to start off with one of the most basic plays in the deck. Basically, your opponent has a monster, and you have a Treeborn in your grave. It's your standby phase. You bring it back. You chain enemy controller from your hand. Tribute your Treeborn. Take their monster. And then you bring your Treeborn back in the same standby phase. So it makes enemy controller a 1-for-1, or even a plus, if you then tribute their own monster for your Monarch. Hit something else. So yeah, that's probably a play that all of you know if you actually have the deck built, but that's probably the most basic play you should know. So let's get down to some other stuff. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is Swap Frog. Swap Frog is really the engine of your deck. It's what keeps you going, gets you started. So when you summon Swap Frog, you can send a frog from your deck to the graveyard, basically. So the first one you're always going to want to do is Treeborn, obviously. And then always return Swap Frog to your hand so that you can use him again. And yes, always return Swap Frog to your hand. And then when you're summoning Swap Frog again, next card you're going to want to ditch is probably Ronin Totem, just so you have it in there. And then you can return Swap Frog again. Then you just cycle through. This is the order I like to do it in. I like to ditch Treeborn, Ronin Totem, Swap Frog, another Treeborn, and then the last Swap Frog. This is really preference. You could ditch both Treeborns in a row, but unless something goes wrong, you don't necessarily need to ditch another Treeborn, because then you could set up for Ronin Totem plays instead. So yeah, that's Swap Frog. He's a very, very important card to the deck. So just always remember to return to your hand and honor the Swap Frog. Alright, the next card I'm going to talk about is going to be Fishborg Blaster. This is another very important card in the deck. You're going to have your Fishborg and your Treeborn, and you're going to make a formula and draw a card. It's great. Helps you get through the deck fast. It's what made the deck good again, basically. And the thing about Fishborg is it's a lot harder to search out and get in the grave than Treeborn is. So two cards that can do it for you pretty easily would be Foolish Burial and 1-for-1. First we'll talk about 1-for-1. What you're going to want is ideally a Treeborn in hand, or any card in hand. And a Treeborn already on the field. And Fishborg in your deck. So you play 1-for-1, you ditch whatever card. This would just get rid of a dead Treeborn. And then you bring back Fishborg, make a formula. Then you got both your Treeborns engraved, and you're good. And yeah, then you get to draw a card. And another way to do it would be Fishborg's in your deck. You got a Treeborn on board. You activate Foolish. You send Fishborg to your grave. And then you have like any given card in your hand. These would be two good ones, I guess. Then you ditch your 1-for-1, bring back Fishborg, make a formula, or you ditch the dead Treeborn in your hand, get back Fishborg, make a formula. Basically, Fishborg is about making formulas. Yeah, another decent thing to do when you already have Fishborg in grave. Say you went first, you had a not so great hand, you set your Fishborg just so it'd get in the grave, then Fishborg's in grave, and then you draw and you get a Swap Frog. You're like, hey, I got a Swap Frog. And so these two cards are in your hand. Then you special summon Swap Frog by ditching Treeborn. So that gets your Treeborn in grave. Then you dump like another Swap Frog in grave. And then you're good. And next turn, bring back Treeborn. Ditch like this dead Treeborn. Get back Fishborg, make a formula. It's just all about making formulas. Once you get that cycle going, deck goes pretty fast and it's pretty good. So yeah, next thing. Okay, next card I'm going to talk about is Sangan. Sangan is great in this deck, just because he searches out everything that's not a Monarch, basically. And by that I mean frogs and Fader. But yeah. Sangan is one more way to get your Fishborg, if you really need to. Sangan can get you your good buddy Swap Frog when you need him. At the beginning, Sangan can also get you a Battle Fader when you're in trouble, which is really important. If your opponent's setting up their big OTK, you got that Sangan down, you should feel pretty safe. You attack into Sangan, search out Fader, you're like, Fader. And then next turn you're like Dark Dust Spirit, 22. Then they just frown. Yeah, so Sangan, it's a great card in this deck. Make sure to not waste it and grab something you need. If you feel that you're sitting pretty good, you've already got your Treeborn and Fishborg engraved, just grab the Battle Fader. You never know when you might need it. So yeah, that's Sangan. Next card I want to mention is Battle Fader itself. Battle Fader. Basically, when you have this card, you're pretty safe unless they're going to warning it. But what you want to do is keep Battle Fader in your hand until you need to use him. If you're at pretty high life and you're just taking like a full helm to the face, you don't need to Battle Fader just to negate that 13. You want to save Battle Fader until either you're desperate for a tribute or you can set up for like a lad play. Like if you can go Fader and then bring back your Treeborn, then next turn you just sack them both. Bring out Lad, that's great because Lad's amazing. Or if it's early game and you're drawing nothing and it's like the second time you've taken damage, you can go ahead and Fader and then just drop a Monarch on that if it's your only way you can get a Monarch out. Just if you're desperate, basically. So yeah, that's Battle Fader. Use it strategically, basically. Don't just drop it because you have it. Next card is going to be Lad, Light and Darkness Dragon. Lad is an amazing card because it forces your opponent to minus themselves to get around it, unless they warning, and even then they're paying 2,000 and you're getting a monster from your grave, because Lad says when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, select a monster in your graveyard. It doesn't say when this card you control is destroyed, and Solemn Warning says destroyed. So when your Lad is destroyed, you get to bring back a monster from your grave. And beat for 2,000 with that Dark Magician Girl. But yeah, Lad's just great. You want to go ahead and try to summon Lad in a way that isn't inconvenient to you, per se. So, like I just mentioned, Treeborn and Fader, a great way to get Lad out. And another decent way to get Lad out, you got a couple of these guys in your grave, and a Ronin Totem. And you bring back Treeborn, and you go ahead and you special Ronin Totem by removing from play a Swap Frog, and you have 2 monsters on board, and tribute them off. Summon Lad. And then you got a Lad on the field, and that's just advantage for you, basically. And yeah, you really only want to do the Ronin Totem way of getting out Lad if you already have slight advantage, or if you can make advantage off of it. By that I mean, like, if they have a monster that you're going to be able to attack over. Yeah, so be strategic on your Lad plays. It's a little bit more derpable than like a Fader, I feel. But still try to be smart about playing Lad. Yeah, and then we're getting down to the wire, but I have one more thing to talk about, I think. Last thing I want to talk about is just playing your Monarchs smart. So, you got your Treeborn engine going, you're doing good. You drop a Caius, your opponent has no response, you just attack for 24. You're good. Your opponent sets like 1 back row or something. You bring your Treeborn back. You don't need to tribute for another Monarch just to do it. You can just sit there with Caius poking away until you need to play another Monarch. Like, Caius gets destroyed, and then you sack for Ryza the next turn. And then you hit for 24 again. You don't need to always play a Monarch just because you have them. It's good to have Monarchs in your hand, because Monarchs are outs. So yeah, basically, just all these cards, think before you play them. Now you guys know some of the basic plays, I guess, if you already didn't. I mean, I'm sure you guys knew some of those, maybe you knew all of them, but yeah. If you guys like the idea of me explaining how to play the cards in a deck, it'd be really great if you guys could thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. So yeah guys, thanks and peace out.